Hi, my name is Jo Chapple and I'm a chartered physiotherapist, and I am here with Aoife McDonald, where I say here, remotely here in the same sort of online space with Aoife McDonald, dietitian from the Digestive Health Clinic. And I'm going to talk to Aoife today and pick your brains, because I know you're a wealth of knowledge on the importance of nutrition for postnatal women. I work with quite a lot of new mums, and I am really passionate about really helping to empower women to get back to doing what they want to do in a safe, effective, efficient way. And I completely recognise and appreciate that your role as a dietitian is really important in that, because we need good food, good diet to help us with the building blocks for our recovery in the postnatal phase. So I suppose from my perspective as a mum, I can appreciate how wonderful it is having children, but I can also appreciate that it's very stressful, it's very time consuming. Your own self-care, well, I'm speaking about myself here, kind of slips down the list of priorities. And I think can really sometimes have quite a profound impact on the dietary choices that mums make. And so I would love to just get all of your knowledge about what we need to be telling postnatal women, because it's a really important subject and topic to discuss. So help us out, Aoife. What do we need to know as postnatal mums?
Yeah, first of all, thanks so much for having me, Jo. I'm really excited for this series that we're going to be doing. So postnatal nutrition obviously is so important. Yeah. So obviously after pregnancy and in the immediate period afterwards, your body has obviously gone through a lot over the past couple of months. Yeah. And it's really important to prioritize as best you can your nutrition in the postnatal recovery period. So I suppose we can start with maybe kind of between maybe breastfeeding moms and women who aren't breastfeeding.
Okay, yeah.
So if you choose to breastfeed, the recommendation is to have between 300 and 500 extra calories per day. Okay. And the reason for that is because kind of production of breast milk is quite an energy kind of sapping process. Yeah. So it's important that, the mother is staying nourished during that time, because if you're not eating enough, the quality and the quantity of the milk can be affected. And as well, sorry, you're going to ask something?
No, sorry to interrupt you. I'm just sitting here going, okay, so what does 300 to 500 calories look like? Because, what does that mean?
What is that in food?
What does it mean? What is that?
It's just a number. Yeah.
How does it look?
What does that mean? Yeah. Okay, so kind of for getting an additional 300 to 500 calories a day. So for a woman, that might look like maybe 2 extra snacks during the day. Okay. So when it comes to planning your snacks, it's really important that you're looking at including a source of protein with each of your snacks. Protein is the building blocks to all of your cells in your body. So we need to ensure, particularly in the postnatal period, if you are recovering, if any wounds or things like that where you're recovering, that you are giving yourself adequate high quality sources of protein. So when it comes to snacks and what does 300 to 500 calories look like, so we'd often say with your snacks to combine maybe a type of carbohydrate with a type of protein. So that might look like, a slice of wholemeal bread with some peanut butter and banana as one of your snacks for the day. It might look like some Greek yogurt with some fruit, or it might look like a handful of nuts or dried fruit with an apple. So there's a couple of different options, or even something like a glass of milk is very nourishing as well, to get in, a good source of protein, some calories, and lots of different vitamins and minerals with that as well, which are really important. So in terms of kind of snacks, there are some good options, but also thinking about your main meals when it comes to protein content. So we know that generally people are very good for getting their protein in at dinner. We all have, meat or fish or something like that. But breakfast is one that I often see that people are kind of forgetting about in terms of their protein. Yeah. So for kind of protein in terms of kind of the breakfast, so generally things like eggs, if you like eggs, Greek yogurt is really, really good to include if you do like it. Then kind of with your cereals, having some milk in there. And even actually things like nuts are a good source of protein, which people actually often forget about. So including some nuts and seeds in there, and that will be beneficial both from kind of a protein perspective as well as healthy fats. and lots of vitamins and minerals, which are really important for that recovery period.
See, there's so much even in what you've just said there. Like my head is going off on so many different things.
Yeah, there's so much to it.
There's loads, and I just think people, people deserve to know as much as they can, as much as they want to know. And like you're saying there about the snacks again, like I'm thinking loads of things with that. First of all, I'm thinking, God, it's actually not that much. You're saying, like I've definitely overeaten. Like I very easily overeat, and I'm not sure that that's unique to just me. I think that's probably something that a lot of us might do. So portion size is something that came to my mind there. Anyhow, you said about breastfeeding mums and how they will require just that little bit more in terms of food for energy and nourishment and protein and so on. So does that then mean that you would have, like, instead of your breakfast, lunch and evening meal and then your snack in between, morning snack, does that mean then that you can have like a third snack or not? Does that question make sense?
If you're breastfeeding, like whatever way you want to distribute your meals in the day is absolutely fine. There's no kind of set period that you have to eat, but we'd often recommend to, if you are eating kind of more little and often, to try to have something to eat every 2 to 3 hours. So either a small meal, a snack, or a nourishing drink like a glass of milk or something. So just keeping it in regular intervals, so you're not going really long periods without eating. So that's really important to keep, just to maintain like your energy levels and things like that as well.
Okay, and that sounds great. And just in terms of when you're saying about the importance of protein, because protein is just it's really essential, like building block for repairing, isn't it? For repairing our tissues. So that can be everything from sort of the uterus healing postnatally, from where the placenta detaches, and that's sort of essentially a wound that needs to heal, and all the changes in our muscle mass and so on. So protein is absolutely essential. What about vegetarian mothers, vegan mothers? What about, I hear an awful lot of the time that some mums, particularly breastfeeding mums, where their children may have, or their babies may have, sort of suspected lactose intolerance. There's a lot of mums who are going on dairy-free diets. What are your suggestions there in terms of how they get their protein sources? Because if you're saying that we need lots of hits of protein throughout the day, what do these women do?
Yeah, so for women who don't eat meat or animal products for various reasons, so still, we need to look at ensuring that those women are also getting adequate amounts of protein in their diets. So when it comes to kind of alternatives, so different alternatives for things like meat and fish are going to be things like your legumes. So that's like your beans, your lentils, chickpeas, kidney beans. All of those are type of legumes which are often used as a substitute for meat in different meals. As well, you're going to be looking a lot at soya products, so like tofu or like the corn products as well as alternatives to meat. Other source of protein, so for example, if you're not eating dairy, you're not eating yogurts and milk, so it's really important that you're replacing any dairy products with dairy alternatives. So that's from like a protein point of view, but also from a calcium point of view. So we know that, particularly after or during pregnancy and after pregnancy, there's a higher need for calcium. So it's really important that if women don't like dairy, or they can't eat it for whatever reason, that they have an alternative instead. And making sure that whatever alternative they're having, if it's like a soya milk or something like that, that it is fortified with calcium and vitamin D to support their bone health. And to be careful with some kind of milk alternatives. So even though things like almond milk, cashew milk are kind of sold as alternatives to dairy, they're actually very low in protein. So the milk alternative with the highest protein content is generally the soya milk and soya yogurt. So if you do like them, then they're kind of the best ones to go for in terms of on alternatives. And also protein, things like nuts and seeds is what people often forget about. So things like hemp seeds, they're very, very high in protein, as are things like chia seeds, and they feel quite handy to add into like yogurts or on salads and soups. Your breakfast is a really good time to add them in, nut butters. So there are lots of options available, but it does require a bit more planning if you're not having animal products. So just make sure you are having that protein hit, as we said, regularly throughout the day.
Okay, and you touched there on the importance of calcium as well, and so bone remineralization is something that is really important for the postnatal woman. So yeah, the calcium content is really quite important, isn't it? What about other bits and pieces? I'm thinking as well things like iron. You know, there's so much. I mean, women, you know, they've grown a human, they've grown a baby, and that requires so much energy and so many chemicals from the mum, and so many sort of molecules from the mum, that, you know, she really does give so much to the baby.
Yeah.
Are there other sort of things from a dietetic point of view that women should be mindful of in terms of replenishment postnatally?
Yeah, so like you said, so definitely the calcium. So aiming to have 2 to 3 generally sources of dairy or dairy alternatives every day. The thing too as well, remember in terms of kind of nutrients, is that some nutrients have impacts on the absorption of other nutrients. Right. So for example, when we're talking about iron, so iron is obviously generally found in a lot of the animal foods, but a lot of the protein alternatives that we talked about are kind of higher in a non-heme iron, which is the plant type of iron that people can get from plant foods. But the only thing with the non-heme iron, which is found in plant foods, is that it's not as easily absorbed by the body. So what we normally recommend for somebody who's on a plant-based diet is that they include a source of vitamin C with their iron-rich food, and the vitamin C actually helps to improve the absorption of the non-heme iron. So that's an important point to consider for anyone on a vegan or vegetarian diet. So vitamin C and iron kind of paired together.
Okay, is that something that should be paired? Is that like a rule that you should just have in your head? Anytime you're eating something that's kind of got a high iron content, just have that glass of orange juice with it as well? Or is that just a necessary rule to have for the rest of your life?
It doesn't have to be all the time. Like if you're someone who eats animal products, then getting iron mightn't be as much of an issue. But if you are someone who's on a vegan or vegetarian diet, it's definitely something that should be on your mind, you know, to have something on a regular basis. Like it doesn't have to be a juice. So it could be that you're having, you know, your main meal, you're having some type of legume or something, and having maybe some peppers with it, which are a good source of vitamin C, will help to help absorb it. So having them together. So even a fruit with your main meal. So like a lot of the time you will just naturally do it anyway without even trying. They tend to pair those kind of foods together, but just keeping that in mind will help to increase absorption. And then with calcium, we know that vitamin D is important for calcium absorption. And in Ireland, you know, we all know that we don't get a lot of sun. So particularly at the moment, people are spending more time indoors, so we're not getting the vitamin D from the sun. And generally between the kind of winter months for about half the year in Ireland, we can't actually make vitamin D from the rays that we get from the sun because it's not strong enough. So in the winter, generally, it's recommended that we take about 10 micrograms of vitamin D every day. But at the moment, you know, some countries are saying for their residents to continue taking vitamin D at the moment if they're not really going outside. So that might be something to consider. And we know that a lot of people are vitamin D deficient as well. Like I got tested last summer, and I think I have always taken vitamin D anyway, but I was only just above, you know, the normal, which is crazy. And I've had a lot of patients. And I've had a lot of patients I've seen in hospital, especially the elderly, who get their vitamin D checked, and you know they're deficient, and they kind of give you loading doses of vitamin D. With older people stay inside, something to consider definitely.
There is so much there, Aoife. I could literally talk to you for hours and hours, and I've just got like loads of other questions as well. And I'm just conscious of time, and I'm just conscious that we perhaps want to keep it on topic as well, and not keep going off on my own little tangents. So we're going to do this again. Thank you so much for all of those pearls of wisdom today. I really appreciate that. I think it's been really helpful. And next time when we meet, we're sort of planning to talk about the impact of our gut health for our overall well-being, and so touch on things like the gut-brain axis, and you know how stress can influence that, and how that might be relevant for the new postnatal mum as well.
Yeah, so we're talking all about that. So loads to talk about in that topic as well.
Lots of subjects to cover. So hopefully by the end of a few more discussions, we'll all be much wiser with lots more information about what we're doing. So listen, thank you so much for your time there, Aoife. I really appreciate that and look forward to when we can talk again next. Okay.
Great, thanks for having me. Chat to you soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.